Hello and welcome back to the lab. Today on the bench we have a couple of things that are not really worth their own video, but are quasi-interesting repairs and or troubleshooting experiences. I got an antenna for a Baofeng radio that needs to be repaired, but it's got a unique little resonant cavity at the bottom of it, so it's kind of cool. And I have a garage door opener, which actually harkens back to the very first video on the channel. It needs to be repaired because it's misbehaving, and it's misbehaving somewhat in the same way. So we're going to get that on the bench, fire up the soldering iron, get some stuff fixed. Some of this stuff, is it worth fixing? Well, the antenna's not very old, and it's not the antenna's fault that it doesn't work. It got dropped a few times. Being that it is repairable, it's worth not spending the money on the antenna. The garage door opener is actually another story. The garage door opener is for a relatively old garage door at this point. Happens to belong to my in-laws. And they had a garage door tech out. And he looked at it, and you can't buy this remote anymore. So he had to scrounge through the truck to find a replacement remote for them because this remote has been discontinued and is out of service. It still functions just fine. It was opening and closing the garage door, which was the problem, actually. It was opening and closing the garage door a little too much. And it also has seen almost no use. It got tucked in a drawer. So what ended up happening is one of the switches actually went bad and was shorted out. Let's see if it'll misbehave. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's very intermittent. Yeah, it's misbehaving already. So they put the battery in. You can see by the flashing light, it's transmitting. It's not supposed to. None of the buttons are being pushed. If I push and hold a button in, I can get it to behave a little bit better. So we have a dead button. These are very common faults in devices like this. As a matter of fact, the very, very first video on the channel, which there was no audio for, I tried to use the microphone on the camera. That was a bad idea. Promptly got a headset microphone, but was replacing very similar switches in a joystick. They sometimes wear out, they sometimes go bad, and they are very much a jelly bean part, especially this style of switch. They do come in various sizes, but this is a 6, I want to say it's a 6x6, and then the third number is, 6x6 push buttons. The third number is going to be how tall the button itself is off the top of the switch. So I've got them in stock all the way up to 15 millimeters. And to give you an idea, here's a 13. That's what a 13 millimeter looks like. The 13 millimeters of throw on the switch itself. Some things that have needed these over the years that just haven't made it to the channel because they've been emergency repairs or something like that is I've repaired a pool circuit board that wasn't functioning, and a replacement board was like $400. So I was able to fix it with a 25-cent switch. So, of course, we'll get that repaired for somebody. But so it's always worth checking, especially if you have an intermittent button, something's acting weird. It may be a very, very simple fault with the switches. And if it is, dive in with a soldering iron, replace the switches. You can buy them, I want to say it's like $4 or $5 for 100. Very common part and very easy to replace. All right, I'm going to see if we can do a little bit of this work around the camera. We'll see how it goes. I need a tip cleaner that's going to sit where I need it to be, not way back behind the camera. So we are going to have some fun, and we're going to do this with N2 fume extractors back behind. So you should see solder smoke just getting sucked in the back. For those finding the channel through this video, soldering is half art, half feel. Well, half science, half art, and half feel. I've done it for quite some time, and it's also based on the tools. Good soldering tools of any brand, good quality soldering tools, are the difference between great joints or burned boards. Some of those plug-in irons that aren't temperature controlled these days, not even worth picking up. Good temperature controlled iron will make all the difference. And tip size too. Tip of an appropriate size will definitely help make the joints a little bit better. I am soldering under an N2 shield gas. You absolutely do not need an N2 shield gas for good soldering. The flux is good enough. More flux, as long as you don't mind cleaning it, usually is okay. Sometimes it can get a little wild. The reason for the N2 iron here is I work on some tech stuff, ceramic strips, and a few other things where the shield gas actually helps protect some very sensitive joints. Kind of cheating with the solder sucker here. And I don't know if that one felt right or not. That might not have. We'll have to see how it comes out. If I get too aggressive or I try to work too quickly with the desolder tool, it doesn't fully melt the solder in the joint, and I won't pull it off the top side of the board through the plated through hole to the desoldering tool. That's the little bit of a delay before the solder gun goes off is actually built into the workflow. It is not a trick of the camera. This job would also be very doable with a simple solder sucker and some desolder braid. Solder sucker to pull the solder out of the hole. Desolder braid to just clean up the holes after the fact. Should be all the switches. We are going to just replace all of them at one shot. One went bad, the other ones are the same age, and they are extremely inexpensive. Might as well just pull them off. Let's see if we can get some switches off now. Going to use a little bit of a flat blade. Oh yeah, they're coming off real nice. So that one, yep, that hole's still grabbing. Gonna make it under. Yeah, there we go. That's going to come off without any damage to the board. I'm being really careful not to gouge out the top side of the board underneath the switch. I don't want to burn up the solder mask if I can help it. All right, so we have this pin to worry about, and that is the one I said didn't feel right. Should we go back up to the vise? And I try not to set the bench on fire with the soldering iron because it didn't make it back in the holder. That's what I get for trying to do things around the camera. That will come off now. Just like that. And we take notes. They usually don't fit in, but the pins were on all in a straight line, so we have an orientation. So it looks like in this particular unit, it was 6 by 6 by 4.3 in terms of the button height, so 4.3 millimeters. Very common size. And our buttons are set in. It's just to see. Yep. We'll just run down this board. For those following along at home, the soldering iron is set to 650 degrees. I have that is in the degrees Fahrenheit. With some of these Heiko irons, even with big ground planes, like right here, I've got a pretty big ground plane. It's going to really solder this without too much trouble. The smoke that's getting moved into the fume extractor is actually flux burning off. It is not lead smoke. The lead contamination, yeah, we do use leaded solder here in the lab. I also have lead-free and use it in certain applications, but I call them out in the videos when I'm specifically using lead-free for a reason or two. Good old-fashioned leaded solder, although this is 6337, not 6040. And that's repair done for that one. Let's put the battery in and see if it works. Buttons feel better. The moment of truth. And no blinking light. Now if I push a button, blinking light. All right, so we do not have errant transmitting anymore. So this garage door opener is back in service and ready to be put back together, which is just snap the case back on. And after a quick clean of the flux off, that is project 1 done. Transmitting, transmitting, and transmitting, and no errant transmitting. So we have a working garage door opener again. This one is going to be a bit more of a challenge. So what we have here is we have an antenna for a Baofeng radio. This is a Nagoya NA701. We have a resonant cavity down in the bottom of the antenna. If my camera will focus, maybe. Yeah, resonant cavity at the bottom of the antenna. This one's going to be a little trickier to solder because I got to hold this straight. I got to hold it first. I have to hold this straight, and that is a really large thermal mass with that brass slug there, which is what's got to solder to the bottom end of this antenna. I'm going to put a little bit more solder on it. You guys can tell from the camera just kind of how much solder was on there. This is how it was put together to begin with. So it was initially soldered. We're going to fix that, but I'm going to try to get a little bit more on there as well. So we're going to use 2 vices and see if we can't figure out a way to work hold this, keep everything straight while I heat this up significantly and not roast this side of the antenna. So that's going to be kind of the challenge. There's a lot of thermal mass here that's going to have to get pretty hot for this to go. So we are going to adjust solder tips. The shield gas, and this is actually why I fired up the N2 iron. The garage door opener did not need it. The shield gas is going to help me with some preheat on this connection and should make the solder flow a little bit better, although we may need to upgrade to a larger tip. All right, after some careful work holding and placement, I think we got that lined up pretty good. The way we did it is I have 2 Panavices that I was just able to get lined up, and I was really worried about the height difference getting that lined up, but this lined up way better than I expected it to. So what we're going to do now is see if we can't get these reconnected. I did switch out to a larger tip on the soldering iron, so I'm going to move you guys over and bring you in from this angle again, and then see if we can't get this thing reattached. I think I'm going to get some flux. I want a bit of liquid flux on this. Clean up this joint a bit more because we are going to get this rocket hot. The weird thing is it's attached. It's attached right now from that quick hit that I did with the iron, but it's not really attached very well. I just melted the solder blob together. The inner track did not get any solder or anything like that. It just kind of remelted this top solder blob. There we go. Now it's seeping in. All right, we will let that cool. That's all it took. That iron is really powerful. Yeah, all right. We did pop the, got it hot enough where we popped the glue off, so that's good. So it got toasty quick. I expected that to take a whole lot more heat. So I'm kind of impressed. The iron we used was an FM 2026 70-watt iron with a larger tip. It is still a chisel tip, though. Still warm, but oh yeah, no, still very warm. Can't touch that quite yet, but I do. Let's get some alcohol and start cleaning that off. Wish I had a VNA to kind of see how well this antenna would perform at this point. I do not have a VNA in the lab. That is one of the pieces of gear that is on the acquisition list. I'd like a reasonably spec'd vector network analyzer. Don't need to go up to crazy high frequencies, but would love to find one that pushes maybe just into 1 gigahertz. So I can work on antennas like this. This is a 470 something megahertz antenna. So even though it's small, it is kind of up there. Interesting choice of an antenna design, though, butt joining 2 brass slugs together. But that's how they decided to do it. All right, let's see if our antenna works. We're using a center frequency of 442 megahertz. It's in the 70 centimeter band. I do have all the licensure and appropriate licenses and certifications to hit the transmit button in operations in the ham radio bands, and I have the radio set to a low power level so it won't escape from down here, but we got good transmit on 442. So that antenna's working just fine. Thanks for stopping by the lab and taking a look at this video and repairing something on the simpler side today. My personal philosophy is everything's worth tearing apart to see if you can fix it, as long as you can know the hazards and understand it. Some stuff is genuinely hazardous to tear apart. So as always, if you're taking something apart and removing the covers, do a little bit of research, know the hazards, and take care. In this case, switches and a little bit of soldering, and we got some things working again. If you'd like to check out videos early and watch them ad-free, check out the Patreon page. Supporters to the Patreon help keep the lights on here in the lab, videos coming up to YouTube, and as always, their help is greatly appreciated. If you like the content, want to hang around for more, do all the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe, and I will see everybody in the comment sections between videos and in the next video. As always, more is on the way. Bye for now.